The Biden administration is under pressure from Congress to investigate a growing number of mysterious attacks against U.S. diplomats, spies, and military personnel. Intelligence officers are working to confirm whether microwave radiation is being used as a weapon to affect the health of American officials in what has become known as Havana syndrome. Those affected have reported headaches and dizziness, and in some cases, a loud noise before the sudden onset of symptoms. In the latest development, NBC News reports the syndrome could be an unintentional byproduct of foreign efforts to collect intelligence from U.S. government employees' electronic devices. They're now concerned that tactic has been weaponized. Our next guest believes he was among those to suffer such an attack while working at a Moscow hotel back in 2017. Mark Polymeropoulos joins us now. He's a 26-year veteran of the CIA, serving in both Iraq and Afghanistan. He is one of the agency's most decorated field officers. He also is the author of the new book, Clarity in Crisis: Leadership Lessons from the CIA. Mark, good morning. It's great to have you with us. Boy, what a fascinating story. Take us back to the early morning hours of December 5th, 2017, when you wake up in Moscow in a hotel feeling what?
Sure, Willie, it's good to be with you this morning. And so, December 2017, I made a trip to the embassy in Moscow. It was in essence to visit our ambassador there, to get some familiarization with Russia and to meet with the Russian government officials. But, one night early on in the trip, I woke up in the middle of the night with an incredible case of vertigo. The room was spinning. I had a splitting headache. I had tinnitus, which is ringing in my ears. I couldn't stand. I was falling over. And look, I'd spent years in the war zones of Iraq and Afghanistan. I put my life on the line. I've been shot at plenty of times, but this was by far the most terrifying experience of my life.
And what did you suspect, Mark, at the time? What even raced through your mind? Was there a possibility that you'd been attacked in some way?
The first thing that came through my mind was it might be something like food poisoning. Look, I traveled all around the world. I think I'd been sick in every continent. But my suspicion started growing when, the next day and the days after, the symptoms didn't necessarily abide. And then when I got back to the United States, particularly in early 2018, I developed symptoms such as brain fog. I lost my long distance vision. At that point, I think, it was pretty clear to me that something very unusual had happened. And that was kind of the beginning of my medical journey, where to this day I still have splitting headaches. It's lasted for 3 years.
Yeah. Hey, Mark, something I don't understand about this story. We've had 3 administrations that have had to deal with it. It was at the tail end of the Obama administration, but of course during the Trump administration, also the Biden administration. And whenever I read these deeply troubling reports, it seems there is a reluctance from administrations, there's a reluctance from government officials, even when some of these attacks are reported in Northern Virginia. Why do you think there's been a reluctance over the past 5-6 years to talk about this?
So that's the big mystery, because, I put this in 2 bins. One is a reluctance to provide health care, and then there's a reluctance to look for blame or actually to find the culprit behind this. And so, I think on the first bin, why we were not given health care, this is just a classic leadership fail. I mean, when I joined the CIA and I was asked to do a lot of unusual things in my career, it was always with the notion that if I got jammed up, that they would have my back. And so they never even provided us the health care. And that was consistent over administrations until today. And I want to give, current CIA Director Bill Burns a lot of credit, because, we are getting the health care that we deserve. But on the culpability piece, look, this is a big deal. These are attacks. It's an act of war against U.S. officials. And so I understand that the intelligence community and administrations want to get it right. But there seemed to be a reluctance, for many years, even to go down that road. And I'm hoping things are changing right now with the current administration.
Mark, I want to get to your book in a second. I just have one more question for you, because as I read these stories, it seems like communist governments, whether you're talking about this happening in Cuba, whether you have this happening in China, whether you have this happening in Russia, there seems to be a consistency. And so you think, okay, well, maybe it's these foreign governments. And then you hear about attacks possibly in Northern Virginia. And I just say, well, wait a second. I mean, are the Russians really going to launch an attack in Northern Virginia, knowing the consequences of that? I mean, all hell broke loose after the attacks in England against a former spy. What do you think about that? When you hear that story, does that sound like something any foreign country would dare do in Northern Virginia?
Sure. So I think that's, there's two answers to that question. One is, I think we have to look at Russia in a different light now. Vladimir Putin and the current Russian security services seem rather unencumbered in doing anything. There's waves of assassinations abroad. There's election interference. So I wouldn't put it past them to do something like this, first and foremost. In terms of the attacks and the reports of the directed energy attacks on officials in Washington, all I will say is that, having spoken, it's sometimes indirectly or receiving kind of accounts of what happened, it's very similar to the symptoms that myself and others, at the agency have encountered. And so I would be loath to dismiss this because, when you have, instances of brain fog and headaches, and vertigo, and in addition, some of these officers were actually working on Russian issues. So I think, we have to be open-minded on this. And look, it certainly is a mystery, but we got to get to the bottom of it because our officials, both home and abroad, are being affected.
So, Mark, let's talk about your book. I love what you're delving into here because you see a lot of management books, and it's about how you handle things when everything's going along swimmingly well or you have a slight dip. I love this because it talks about having a clear mind in crisis, being able to keep your perspective when everything around you is going to hell. Talk about that. You've obviously dealt with it when life and death issues were on the line. But talk about people that are dealing with crises in their own lives and their own businesses, what they learned from this book. What's the first thing that you look for?
Sure. So, so ultimately after, 2.5 decades, working in the third world and dealing with a lot of adversity and failure, I came up with principles that allowed me to be comfortable, in the chaos. And I talk about the gray being our happy place. And so, when others want to flee, this is the place where you want to be, where you can deal with times where there's a lack of situational awareness. So I came up with 9 principles that build on each other. They're very basic. They're very easy to follow. This is not, for the type A personality, special operations or intelligence warriors. It's for everybody. But it includes kind of key principles, such as what I call, the glue guy or the glue gal. And that's identifying the critical member of your team behind the scenes. And so, everyone, if you're in the Navy SEALs or in the intelligence community, you have a door kicker, you're going to grab a high value target. But there's going to be a support officer in the back who's really been integral. So what I challenge the reader in my book is in your unit, in your kind of, in your business, who is that critical behind the scenes member? So I'd even ask you all today on the set of Morning Joe, who is the glue guy or the glue gal that makes the show run every day that maybe doesn't get all the credit? And so I go over these principles because ultimately in the end, when times are tough, you can kind of look back and rely on the team that you've built and really find success.
Hey, Mark, in terms of the book, Clarity in Crisis, you're one of the few people we have on this program who has actually been shot at in theaters of war, Iraq, Afghanistan. So clarity, how did you prepare yourself, or is there a way to prepare yourself for that moment of crisis when clarity is essential?
Sure, and that's a great question, Mike, because, one of my principles I talk about is winning an Oscar, and that's having that, kind of an outward face as a leader, So we can have compassion, we can have empathy as leaders, but when times are really tough, you have to have kind of a face where others, have confidence. And, I talk about an incident in the book where, I was at a U.S. government facility in the Middle East and we were attacked by Al-Qaeda, and this was maybe 15 years ago. And as I was trying to break open the weapons safe and hand out weapons and trying to keep, the station calm, my heart rate went from 0 to 100. But afterwards, when we did kind of the after action review, officers in the station were saying, hey, you looked really calm. Now, I wasn't. But as I looked back and thought about that, it's that outward face that I portrayed that was really important. And I think that's something that, that people, have to understand is that, the people under you or even your peers are going to look to you, when times are really tough. And it's how you react is absolutely critical, in getting through kind of really difficult situations.
The new book is Clarity in Crisis, Leadership Lessons from the CIA. Mark Polymeropoulos, thank you for being with us, and thank you for all you've given to the country over these many years in some tough corners of the world, and continued health to you. That's an extraordinary story. Thanks for being here today.